Hello everyone, my name is Erin and I'm the chair of the Southern Branch of the Irish Patchwork Society. I'm also the designer of our 2016 Block of the Month, QUILT, and as it is August 1st, I am going to debut our August block. And it is the Sister's Choice block, which you can see right here. You can download the materials, the instruction sheet on our website at www.ipscork.com. And if you go to the Block of the Month project and then select 2016, you will find the instructions there. So this is actually a variation on the Sister's Choice quilt block. The way that it's actually meant to be is that, each square is supposed to be 2 inches, but I found to fit this into the 12-inch finished block size that I needed to narrow those kind of crosshair sections. So it's a little bit of a variation in order to get it to work in a 12.5-inch block, but it's great as a 10-inch block if you just change the sizes so that every little square ends up at 2 inches. So let's get into my different variations that I came up with that you can make quilts out of. And so here are the quilt variations. The first one is just kind of a simple, easy, I think this ended up being about a twin size. You use 3 blocks across and 4 blocks down, and there's 1 inch of sashing in between all of them. And then there's also a 4-inch border around that, and I think that's just a nice classic layout. And you can make them all the same color as I did, or change up the colors as well. Online there's a quilt that kind of looks like this, the layout. So it's got a 2-inch white border around it, and then it's got the blocks which I think in the example that I saw were 10 inches. So I guess it was like a 32 by 32 inch quilt. But this one would use the 12-inch blocks. So that's kind of fun. And then there's an inch of sashing in between everything. And then if you just have your binding on and make it quite a contrast binding, that looks quite modern. So. The next one I thought, well, what happens if I just take all of the sashing out and just do 3 blocks across and 4 blocks down? And you get this, which I think is kind of fun. And then I thought, well, what happens if you keep the sashing out, but you alternate the squares of blocks? So you, on the top row, you have 3 blocks, which with just some spacers in between it, and then in the second row you have 2 blocks with some spacers in between those. So it kind of creates a little bit of a checkerboard, which I think looks kind of fun. And then I thought, well, what happens if you put it on point? So this is a quilt that's with 9 on point blocks, and then just a thin border, which I think is quite nice looking. And then I thought, well, let's go crazy and just put a block in every, they're having no spacers basically. And so it creates quite a busy quilt, but I think it looks pretty fun. I'd be quite interested to see how I could, if I used different shades of the same color, and create kind of a pattern that way. So I think that's fun. So let's get to the cutting instructions for this block. So from your background fabric, and in my block that's white, you're going to need to cut 4 3.5 pardon me, let me start that over. Out of the background fabric, you're going to need to cut 4 3-inch squares. You're going to need to cut 4 2.5 by 3-inch rectangles, and then you're going to need to cut 4 4.25-inch squares. From fabric 1, which is kind of that yellow floral in my example, you're going to need 1 2.5-inch square and 4 2.5 by 3-inch rectangles. From fabric 2, which is the bejeweled cat, it's what I'm going to make half square triangles out of, you're going to need 4 4.25-inch squares, and then using fabric 3, which is our kind of yellow check, you're going to need 4 3 by 3 inch squares. And let's get on to our assembly instructions. We're going to begin by making half square triangles using the desired method, which is the one that I'm going to show you. But if you have a different way that you like to make your half square triangles, do that, but make sure that they measure 3 inches by 3 inches when finished. So this is my favorite way. So I'm going to take the patterned fabric, which is that bejeweled cat fabric, and using my marking pen of choice, I'm going to draw a line from corner to corner. And then using that bejeweled cat, I'm going to lay that on top of the background fabric and pin. Once I do that, I'm going to sew 1/4 inch away from that drawn line on both sides. And then I'm going to take my rotary cutter and a ruler and cut directly on that drawn line. And then I'm going to press that open and trim to 3 inches square, and I'm going to make a total of 8. So if you use this process with those 4 4 1/4 inch squares, you will end up with this. And then I use my photo as a guide, and then I lay out my block. So you can just kind of keep yourself organized. I find this is the best way for me, but use whatever works for you. So we're going to start by working on that little crosshair section. That's the yellow floral and the whites. So using those background and yellow floral fabrics, you're going to sew those together and then press open and return to the layout. Next, we're going to work on these corner units. That's kind of the best name I can come up for it. Working with each corner unit, you're going to take the 2 squares in the top row and then the 2 squares in the bottom row, and then sew those squares in each row together. So you end up with something like that. And then you're going to take both of those rows and sew those together. So then you have this. And you can kind of treat it as a 9 patch. You'll sew the units in the row that you have together, and kind of pay attention to the way that you press to make sure that you alternate so it's easier to nest your seams. And then you're going to sew your rows together. And that is this block. This is the Sister's Choice block. It ends up at 12.5 inches unfinished, 12 inches finished. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to contact me. The best email to contact me is this corkips@gmail.com. And then you can find the directions for all of our blocks for the block of the month from 2015 to 2016 on our website at ipscork.com. Again, the tab is at the top. This is the block of the month project. You just click on that and then the year that you want. There's a ton of other information that is on our website as well. Information about our meetings, and let's see, I've been going to some quilt shows over the summer, and there's some slideshows from there as well. So please go ahead and check that out. And our meetings are going to be starting up again in September. That is September 10th. And so if you watch our website, there's going to be a whole lot of information coming up from that. So thank you for watching, and I will see you for September.